Alright, well that's cool. Hey guys, yes, I'm finally back at the RCA CTC5 restoration project. Part of the delay was parts. I had forgotten to order this guy. I tacked one in place. It's not quite the right value. But the bigger issue was Mauser screwed up and left out a few of the parts I had ordered. But I got extras of other parts that I ordered. So it worked out monetarily in my favor, but I had to place another order to get the last few parts I needed. Those arrived. I just finally finished completely these two boards, and I have the proper cap to put in for this guy. It's a .0033. I got one rated for 2,000 volts. The original was 1,600. That'll be fine. So I need to reinstall these two boards and wire them back up. And as I mentioned, I think in the previous video, I tried reforming a couple of these electrolytics and it failed miserably. I tried for a good half hour on each of them, and the leakage current just was not budging. It was excessive. So I'm going to recap all those. I'm going to do it underneath, install some terminal strips if I have to. I'll try to avoid it, but see how that goes. 3 of these are identical, and I think they each have 2 caps inside of them, and then one taller guy I think has 3 or 4. So it's not a horrible amount of caps to do, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Once that's done, then what do we do? Well, I need to scrounge up some of the tubes I tested that were bad, populate all these tubes, sockets, put the high voltage cover back on. Then I got 2 choices. I can throw this back in the cabinet, hook it back up, and try powering it up and hope for the best. Or I can try powering up on the workbench, but I'll have to do a few things because I don't have a picture tube attached to it. Like I would disable the high voltage, for example, hook up a speaker, hook up the tuner, feed in a signal, see if we get a crackle out of the speaker. I'm inclined to try doing that as long as I don't damage anything. I think I'll also leave the tubes out for the vertical output as well, since I won't have a yoke to load it down. But at least I want to do what they call a smoke test on the workbench. Smoke test meaning if you turn it on, does something go up in smoke? Then we can worry about does everything work. Also, there are a number of fuses on this. We can see 2 of them sticking out up here. I think there's 2 down below. I have not checked all of those for continuity. That's something I need to do. And I need to dig up a damper tube. And I have to go back and check my photos when I first got this set, but I think they had the damper and the horizontal output tubes in the wrong sockets. But anyways, I'm pretty sure this is correct for the horizontal output tube, and the damper tube is bad. I got to dig up a new one. Alright, I think we're done. I hope we're done. Working underneath the chassis. Finished replacing all the electrolytics on terminal strips. Reinstalled the shields over these boards. Now I'm going to flip it down and reinstall the tubes, dig up replacements for the ones that I found were bad, and reinstall all the shields. I figure since this came with all RCA branded tubes, we might as well keep that in play. So all of my replacements are new old stock RCA tubes. Okay, believe it or not, yes, we are finally ready for a power up. Have the set on its side with the transformer down so I can get easy access to everything. I've got my voltmeter hooked to right after the fuse, so that point, right on the other side of the filter choke. So 390 on that side. I would think if I'm on the left side of the choke it would be a little bit higher, which leads me to something I'm a little bit concerned about. Get back to that in a sec. I have the tuner hooked up on its side. I don't know if I mentioned this or not. Early on when I first pulled the chassis, I wasn't sure what to do with the tuner, and I noticed this piece of metal fits into that slot. Yeah, you can do that, but actually this is a connector and this pulls off rather easily, and then there's an RCA jack for the IF, so yeah, you can easily disconnect that. Now this tuner has had some trauma to it. Best I can figure is there were some dirty contacts inside and somebody just like ripped the side of the tuner open, did spray in there and didn't put it back together. Pretty sure these two tabs are supposed to go under this, and there should be a screw here. I'll do my best to take care of that once we get the set working. Now I don't have the pitch tube hooked up, so what I did is I popped the plate cap off the horizontal output tube, which will disable the high voltage circuitry, so we should be okay there. I do have a speaker hooked up, so what I'm hoping is we get something close to full B plus and we hear something out of the speaker. Here we go. Got my Suncor PR70 in the 4 amp range. I've heard that these struggle a bit. Not surprisingly, when I use this with some other color roundy sets, it comes close to tripping the circuit breaker. And even when it does run, you're really stressing this a bit, so it should just be for intermittent use, they say on here. But it's 3 to 4 amps intermittent use only, and this draws, I think, a bit over 3 amps. But let's just go for it. We won't be drawing anywhere near that much current because I have disabled horizontal output. We don't have the pitcher tube hooked up, so a lot of stuff that would draw a lot of current isn't hooked up. All right. We certainly don't have 390, or I was thinking it'd be a little bit over 400 at this point. But we got something out of the speaker. B plus is holding steady at around 260. Let's see, here's the volume control. Yep, response to that. So that's all good. So let's check to see what are we actually feeding in. I know this is slightly off from testing the output, so it says 117, it's probably more like 115 or 114. Should be a lot closer to 390, I would think. I'm not going to get too hung up on that. I take these SAM's voltage readings with a bit of a grain of salt. Like I figure if I'm plus minus 20%, we're okay. And it's slowly going up. So, I'm going to turn this back off. I mentioned I was concerned about something. So I've heard from other collectors that this set has a lot of design compromises in it because the earlier color sets were very expensive to produce. So that'd be the CTC2 chassis, basically. And when they did the 5, they cut a lot of corners to reduce the cost. Well, one of the things that has me concerned is these caps. So I replaced the caps with what I saw there. So 80 microfarad, 450 volt caps. But it's 390 volts here. On the other side of the choke, it's going to be a little bit higher, as I said, 400, probably 410, 415. Which is getting close to 450. It's nice to have some overhead, but also when you first turn the set on, these tubes start conducting before all this stuff. Which means there won't be much of a load on the B+, and I could see that shooting well over 400 volts when you first turn the set on briefly. These older caps, because, well, they're physically larger, means they can generally absorb more of a hit. Sometimes you'll see a working voltage plus a peak voltage, which might be 525. Meaning you could put 525 volts on it for a second or 2 or 3 or 5 without any cause for concern. Newer caps, of course, are much smaller. They might have more advanced electrolyte, but physically they're smaller, and generally their surge handling capabilities aren't quite as much. So I'm thinking I should probably get at least a 500, maybe a 600 volt cap, at least for that first guy, or put some type of current limiting device, a thermistor in series with it. Let's check on this. Let's just have a peak mode where it'll save the peak reading, but let's just see if visually we can catch. So here we go. So it did go to over 400 pretty obviously, and I'm starving this at a power a little bit. So yeah, I mean it'll be all right. It's the cap's not going to blow on me right now, but long term, I'm not sure how well that's going to hold up. Let's get this out working first. Now, I thought the B plus honestly was going to be quite a bit higher because I disabled the high voltage, the high horizontal output tube, which is part of the alignment instructions. They say to do that, and they say to add in a big old 100 watt power resistor to simulate the load that you just took off of B plus. So why isn't this? What's drawing the current down? I checked the voltage AC on the pins of the 5U4, and they are dead on. Exactly 350 volts AC, just like they show on this. So I think we're okay on this side. Could be one or both of these are a little weak. I'm pretty sure I tested them. Otherwise, I'm not sure why we're seeing such a low reading there. Well, now, I just happened to turn off the lights to take a photograph of all the tubes lit up so I could share online. I noticed several things. One, only one of the 5U4s is lit up. Well, gee, that might account for the B plus being low. Two, I noticed several other tubes are not lit up. That is horizontal oscillator 6CG7, not lit up. This is one of the sound circuit tubes, the IF or the demodulator. It's the output tube. Here, a little crackle, 6AQ5. So, when I had pulled these boards out, as first started working on them, I'd mentioned that they seemed to have it's like they were dipped in wax or something, very crud on the surface. And the sockets didn't look too nice on some of them, like some of that crud, goo had gotten into the socket pins, and I was concerned about some of these making good contact. After we got a problem with circuit board traces. I went over these boards pretty damn thoroughly and reflowed stuff. Yeah, we got to get that sorted out. So we have 3 tubes that aren't lit up. Let's figure that out next before I worry about injecting a signal. Well, when I took this 5U4 out, it was crazy hot. Well, that seems odd though, right? Because the filament wasn't lit. You'd think it'd be cold. But check out the getter. Sure looks to me like air has gotten inside here. Now, it's not so obvious. I always thought that, hey, if air leaks inside, as soon as you put power on the filament, it's going to burn out. That's not what happens. What happens is the air conducts heat so well that the filament never glows orange. The air carries the heat away, and that's why the glass gets so hot and you never see it glow, is it's heating up all the surrounding air in the surrounding environment, but it never burns out. Well, I think we need a new 5U4. Now, as far as the other 2 goes, those I still need to investigate. Pretty sure is oh, you know, hey, maybe that's well, so I mentioned earlier I was trying to put all RCA branded tubes in here. I couldn't find an RCA branded new all stock 6U8, so I put in a Sylvania. And maybe this set just doesn't like it because it's a Sylvania. I don't know. And why isn't this guy lit up? Well, there are several on here, so first thing I'll do is swap this with another one and I'll try digging out another 6U8. I'll be honest, the new old stock tubes I pulled out, I didn't check them. I just assumed they were good and popped them in the set. Maybe this is just a dud. Okay, popped in another RCA 5U4, swapped in a different 6U8, and swapped 2 existing 6CG7s in the chassis. Now, since we were running this with half the rectifier out of circuit, I assume that's why the B plus was low, so now it's going to be a lot higher. But I'm really concerned about stressing those caps out, so I turned down the input voltage to this. Let's see what this is going to shoot up to when I turn it on now. Here we go. On. Okay, we just did 400. Well, yeah, it's with this decreased input, but we're staying above 300 as the set warms up. That's a bit different than what we saw before. We still have our speaker crackle. So let's see, what am I feeding into the set now? About 105 volts. Definitely a more obvious indication from the tuner. Huh, and that light went out on the tuner again. It's not my imagination. I thought I'd seen that before. And then, I don't know what's causing that to happen. Whenever I power cycle the set, the pilot light goes out until I change the channel a few times and it comes on. Could just simply be a dirty contact, of course. Alright, how about those 2 other tubes that were dark before? They are still dark. Okay. So, a couple of possibilities. Something up with the socket, something up with the circuit board trace, go into those sockets, or I didn't hook the wires back up right. I rewired the board. Well, that's the easiest one, horizontal output board. There's only a few wires going to it, so let's go after that one first. But before we do that, now I will try injecting a signal. But I got a little bit more reassurance about what's going on with this set. Alright, so that is sealed. And there's going to be some coils and stuff in here. I was hoping that something was exposed that I could clip a signal into. Well, that's annoying. Wonder if I can fairly easily disconnect the antenna input assembly from the cabinet and bring it down and plug it into that. Otherwise, well, let's just give it a try. I'm just going to take the output from this and clip it to an alligator lead and drape it over the tuner and see if we can pick anything up. Hoping to hear a 1 kilohertz test tone. Alright, so I'm broadcasting on channel 3, full power. Sure, why not? Yep, 1 kilohertz audio. Let's just, I don't know, do something like that. Actually, let's see. Okay, this is the RF amp tube. We can do that. Inductively couple something into it. Normally there'd be shields over those tubes. Alright. Try going around the dial. Oh well. Well, I'll try one other thing. I'll just leave this on that channel and flip through on the modulator. 6 channel, 7 channel, 8 channel, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh well. Actually, there's something we can do that I've been doing with predictor sets for a while. Forget the tuner. We can inject a signal directly into this. If I take this, and I do this, and I take my output from my pattern generator, plug this right in here, I can put my pattern generator, instead of doing it in RF mode, I can put it in IF mode. Ooh, and there it is. Let's turn that right on, because we are hot wiring this set. So we're directly injecting the IF, we're bypassing the tuner. Isn't that lovely? Now I do the volume turned up all the way, I think. Let's turn that down a little. Maybe that'll help. So that should be 300 hertz, 1 kilohertz, 3 kilohertz, 5 kilohertz. Not the best audio by any means. But you know what? That 6U8 is still not glowing. And I believe that is kind of a key tube in the sound. Or not. Actually, what is that 6U8 used for? No, the sound IF is a 6AU6 feeding into a 6T8. No, it's a sync separator. And AGC keying. Okay. So that tube being out is not going to affect the sound. Alright. This is the 6CG7 on the horizontal oscillator board. It's not lighting up. I think it has to do with the grounding problem. I was a little concerned about this when I saw how the construction technique with this goes, where the grounding on a lot of these circuit boards is via just pressure. So a lot of the corners on these boards just have a loop of copper around it, and when you tighten this down to the chassis, it's just relying on pressure between the chassis and this. Got the similar models. We've got cadmium plated steel, solder flowed over copper traces, pushed up against each other. Not the most reliable thing. So I think what happened is, well, also this corner was damaged. That's where it broke off, and I super glued it back on, and it broke the traces. So on the left-hand side of this, it's not going to anything. Now, what does this go to? Well, this grounded bit goes to a few circuit elements, but it also goes to, I think it's pin 5 on this tube. It goes to one side of the filament. So on all these tubes, one half of the filament is just ground going to the chassis, and the other side goes to 6.3 volt tap on the power transformer. Now I also checked this upper left-hand corner, and that was not making contact. This was making contact, but the resistance is high. It was like 4 ohms instead of 0. And on this side, it wasn't making contact at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bridge the brakes on this copper, and I'm going to build up the solder a bit so it's a little bit thicker. Oh yeah, I can feel it's thicker on this left-hand side where the trace is cracked. It's thicker on that side than on this right-hand side. So I'm going to load this all up with solder to get it about the same level and bridge the gap, and put a little bit on the other side. Now, one thing I was thinking that might help with this is to use washers that have teeth that'll bite into both surfaces as it gets tightened down. I'm not quite sure why RCA didn't do that back then. But, yeah, it seems like it's a grounding problem. Maybe the same on the other board. The other tube it's not lighting up is right about here. I got to take this cover off to examine that one. Well, it sure appeared to be a grounding issue on both of these. I reflowed solder on the corner pads on both these boards and tightened down the screws. Double checked with an ohm meter. And it looks like we have a much better connection now. Let's fire it up again. Yep, both those tubes are lighting up now. Excellent. I think every single tube is lit up now. But now we have no test tone. What happened with that? Ooh. We got a bad connection on the tubes in the IF board. It's glowing. It's weird. When I put my fingers over it, obviously I'm letting the signal get through, whereas the tube is not. We got some grounding problems down here too. Oh no, I never took this board out. This is the one board I didn't do any work on. Maybe I should. I did spot check the resistors. There aren't that many parts on here. There's no paper caps, so that's why I didn't bother with it. Something is not making connection down here. The signal just comes screaming through if I bring my hand or a tool anywhere near this. I've never experienced anything that's quite like that. Where it's got tons of gain, but just the signal is just not coming through somewhere. Alright, well that's encouraging though, because once we solve that, it seems like it has tons of gain and can get clear sound. Now there is supposed to be a shield over this module, so I'm reinstalling it right now, thinking that might be causing an issue. And I notice while I'm tightening this down, there's something up with this area right here. Okay, I guess you need to put the shield on. Okay, I'll take the win. Alright, much better. Obviously we got to clean the volume control. Now again, that's with me directly injecting and bypassing the tuner, but alright. So I think what I'll do next is button up the shields. There should also be one over this guy. I didn't want to bother installing them because there's a whole bunch of screws in case there was a problem on power up, like we can have some of the tubes light up. But I think we're past that now, so I'll reinstall this. And it's not just these boxy things, there are individual tube shields that go over a bunch of these tubes as well. I'll pop those in. And then, well, I guess we just don't really have any choice at this point. We got to reinstall this in the cabinet and hook the picture tube back up, because I have no means right now to rig up a bench test color CRT jig. Alright, here's the plan. I'm going to leave the tuner off for now. We don't need it to power up the set and hopefully get a glow on the CRT face. What I have installed on the right hand side is a device that lets you monitor the cathode current on horizontal output tubes. Now, most sets of horizontal output tube is closer to the back of the chassis and it's easy to plug that thing in. In this case, it's on the front side of the high voltage box. So it was pretty hard to get it installed at all. And that's as long as the cable is, so I have it mounted rather awkwardly, but I want to get some indication of the current draw on this thing when I turn it on, so I can kill it if it's drawing too much. I don't want to burn the flyback out. I honestly am not familiar with the controls on this. I know the tuner's on the side, but brightness, contrast, that must all be behind the control door on the front. So I'm going to hop around to the front and set the brightness, I don't know, halfway up, something like that. And the last thing I need to do is dig up my PR57, bring it up here from the workshop and plug the set in, and let's give this a try. I imagine some of you are yelling at your screen right now, hey dummy, the brightness is on the same control with the power and volume. Yes, you are correct. I'm missing that outer knob, but this is brightness. So I'm going to set that to be about halfway up. I'm going to turn it on, turn the volume up a little bit, and we're going to control the power with the switch on the PR57. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to basically give it full power. And keep an eye on the current draw here, and keep an eye on the current draw there, and see if anything happens on the screen. Alright, here we go. Shut up to about 3.5 amps, drop back down to 1 3/4 amps. CRT filaments are all lit. Engine current draw is going to start climbing as tubes warm up. Still no horizontal output tube current's going up. I can sense high voltage. Something sure is singing and ringing. We're drawing 2 amps. Horizontal output current 100 milliamps, which seems reasonable. Got to hum out of the speaker. Well, I can't tell if the CRT is doing anything because of that shroud, so I got to go to the front of the set. Don't see any glow on the shunt regulator or the high voltage rectifier, but it normally would. Ooh. We're getting periodic flashes of light on the front of the CRT. It's better than nothing. Just turned all the lights off so you guys can see it better. It's flashing more rapidly. Alright, well that's cool. Imagine I can play with horizontal and vertical, and the controls I'm sure are all crazy right now. So look inside the set with the tubes glowing. Insane CRT flicker. Okay, the set was running pretty lean. It was only at about 100 volts AC. I bumped it up to more like 115 now. And I turned the brightness up a bit. So that's all looking better. This is horizontal hold. Yeah. Had a feeling I wasn't too happy with that. So it's a little bit happier there, I think. I guess the fun kind of commences now. Just trying some of these controls, see if they even do anything. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Well, that's AGC, I think. So many controls down in here, it's hard for me to be sure what I'm manipulating. And here's the last one. Well, that sure seems like height. Okay, well, it's not dead. Flyback is doing something. I'm not crazy about this situation. Let's see if we look at this control. Alright, now I'm feeding in a color bar pattern. The handy Syncor portable pattern generator. And I've been playing around with horizontal hold. It seems like it was way off. The ringing has gotten a lot less annoying. Turning and turning. I've rotated this thing around like 5 full rotations. Still, we got enough range. It's getting closer and closer and closer. Come on, come on. We have color bars. Gorgeous, yes. Gorgeous, vibrant color bars. And now color and tint must definitely do something. There we go. A thing of beauty. Yeah, we got some work to do, to put it mildly. This pattern might be a little bit more familiar to you guys. Yeah, we got some work to do. Notice too, this is a contrast control. It has a huge effect on the image, including the focus. And the picture kind of shrinks and blooms. So I think we might have some issues. Might be the original high voltage rectifier that I left in there, and I think it's the original focus rectifier. Probably I should swap out both those tubes. All that being said, sure, I'd like it to look better, but I mean, I had all kinds of concerns, like burned out flyback, stuff like that. So we're past that. Here's some other patterns. It should be a staircase. Sharpness. Again, where I set that contrast control has a big impact on the, seemingly on the focus. Oh, it's a little deceptive. As it, increasing the contrast, I believe, is increasing the gain of the video amp. So it's yeah. Now, I do have very detailed instructions for setting this up. What else we got? There's a crosshatch. What I find odd is it's like I can see a separate, green is the most prominent crosshatch, but I can see a red one and a bit blue, like the images, they're offset from each other. I mean, that's what convergence is all about, I realize, but it seems like the static convergence is off. Like, it's not that it's bad on the edges, it's uniformly bad across the board. Like I can see the green, and then the red, and then I think the blue. So, yeah. Now, I got to admit too, when I had this up on the workbench, I was going over these controls, I did deoxit them and I tweaked them all a little bit, so they're all off. But let me grab a screwdriver and just, can I get in there on any of them without a tool and turn them? Not really. I just want to see if I adjust some of these. I mean, they're all a mess already, so I'm not going to hurt anything. But what will it have an effect on this? Okay, so a number of these controls have multiple functions. This is G, and it's the inner one, so it's tilt, and that sure seems to be what it does. So check out this green line here. As I turn this, it's now kind of tilted. If I keep turning it, now it's straight. Tilted, straight. Here's red. Similar deal. Red is now tilted, now it's straightened out. Okay, that's the inner one. How about the outer one? Or, well, let's see what this guy does. It is hard to get these controls. This is a very similar action as tilt, but it's kind of going the other way. Try this guy. Yeah, red tilt, outer. So the outer they call amp, the inner they call tilt, but they're both having an effect on the tilt. Some variable inductors here. It also says tilt and tilt. Some of these guys have controls down the center of the shaft. Yep, the screwdriver's long enough. Oh! Kind of seemed like it looked a whole lot better there for a sec. Oh. Obviously, I need to go through and read the procedure. I'm just glad these controls do something. That's got to be height or linearity. Height, I do believe. Alright, so I got my work cut out for me, but it's a good start. Now with the horizontal on frequency, and I played around with it a bit, the horizontal output current is up to 150 milliamps. I need to consult the service info and see if that's within the correct range. And we'll take it from there. I think that's enough for now. I want to take a break before I mess anything up any further. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.